I'm Sonia Astudillo, reporting from Baku, Azerbaijan, as we cover the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP29. Today, we'll take a closer look at the highs and lows of COP28, delve into what's at stake at COP29, and outline the expectations and demands from civil society organizations and alliances like GAIA who are pushing for an increase in climate finance in the waste sector and a shift from harmful to impactful policies and practices that are geared towards upstream waste solutions with environmental justice principles at its core. Additionally, we'll explore upcoming activities where we will see more of the GAIA delegation and what we are doing here at COP29. Joining me is Mariel Vilella, GAIA Climate Policy Director, and Marcel Howard, GAIA US and Canada Zero Waste Program Manager. Hi, Mariel. Hi, Marcel. How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, Mariel. Let's remind our viewers what happened in COP28 and what were the network's wins and losses.
Yes, thank you so much, Sonia, and hello, everyone. So last year at COP28, we saw a lot of progress in our agenda, but I think it's worth going a little bit more back in time to see the evolution of what's been happening with the topics around waste and climate. Because it's really since 2021, the COP26 in Glasgow, where there was the launch of the Global Methane Pledge, which really was a game changer in the climate agenda in terms of the implications for the climate solutions in the waste sector. And since then, we've seen a lot of more attention given to the climate solutions in the waste sector. And today it's clear that reducing methane emissions is a key step towards achieving the Paris Agreement goal of keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees. And of course, like if we are reducing methane emissions, we really need to reduce the methane emissions in the waste sector because only the methane emissions from landfills are 11% of the total of anthropogenic methane emissions. So definitely it's critical to look at that. And so the agenda has been established and the priority has been given to many countries that have taken up the commitment to reduce methane emissions by 2030. And yet it is unclear how is this going to happen. Implementation is still very much a question. And I think last year at COP28 with GAIA, we had the chance to launch the environmental justice principles for fast action on waste and methane. And I think that was a very important step forward because this is a tool that gives guidance to policymakers to make sure that as they design this methane reduction agenda and interventions in the waste sector, they aligned these interventions with environmental justice principles will put people first. And this is important because in the first place, these interventions will be looking at the upstream solutions at the top of the waste hierarchy, which is where we have the greatest environmental benefit, but also the greatest job creation and the greatest chance to ensure just transition in the waste sector with the inclusion of waste speakers and enhancing the local knowledge and the local expertise and making sure that we use this opportunity to move away from some of the most problematic technologies that exist as well in the waste sector, like waste to energy incineration. And basically we take the chance to have a holistic approach to the waste sector and make sure that it delivers in co-benefits, which end up being the core benefits. And these are the ones that will ensure that it's not only about mitigation of methane reductions, but also we deliver in community development, in environmental health, jobs and building economies for the future. So I think the great step forward at COP28 was precisely to put environmental agenda at the top of the methane reduction agenda. And what is still missing, again, and this is part of the job that we have here at COP29, is advancing on implementation and advancing on finance. And this is very much what we still need to do and why we're here.
Thanks, Mariel. I always like how the emphasis when we say co-benefits are the core benefits. So you mentioned that climate finance in the waste sector is severely underfunded. What exactly do you mean by this?
Well, the waste sector provides public service. Waste management is a responsibility of governments, of local authorities. This is something that needs to happen so that we have a functioning city and sustainable cities and communities. And yet the waste sector really receives very little money, is severely underfunded when we compare to other sectors. And also what we are seeing is that it's actually underfunded, and public funds are really the least that is received in the waste sector. There's a larger proportion of private sector money that's going into the waste sector of the money that exists. And this is some of the early findings that we have found in a research that we have commissioned this year, a report that we have been working with Climate Policy Initiative, a research center based in Indonesia in collaboration with Instituto Polis from Brazil and YPPB from Indonesia. And this is some of the early findings that we're going to be presenting in an official site event here on Thursday. And I'll be taking the chance to invite everyone to be following the live of this. So, but basically, the idea is that we realize as we're talking about like the climate mitigation potential that we see in the waste sector, and yet climate finance is not flowing enough to the waste sector. And the money that there is, actually, most of the money that goes for methane reduction in the waste sector goes to waste to energy incineration from private sources, which really is part of the problem because it exacerbates climate change, it exacerbates pollution, it's a direct impact to jobs of vulnerable communities. So we really need to increase the funds for the waste sector, but also shift them so that the solutions that are at the top of the waste hierarchy, prevention, composting, biogas, inclusion of the waste sector, that at the moment are receiving only 1% of all this climate finance. They are properly funded, properly supported, and we really fully utilize the opportunity that we have in the methane reduction agenda in the waste sector.
Okay, so COP29's main agenda is to deliver a new climate finance goal, the new collective quantified goal, or NCQG, on climate finance. Why is this important for GAIA?
Well, it's very important for GAIA, it's very important for the planet, because really at COP29, this is on the top of the agenda. The negotiations, the parties here are mandated to come up with this new climate finance goal, and this really needs to channel greater funds toward the very much needed climate action in the global south. And this is an historical responsibility from the global north and the rich countries that have historically contributed the most to the climate change and the reality that we have now. They have a climate debt that it needs to be paid to the global south. So definitely GAIA, as part of the climate justice movement, is very supportive to pay up for the climate debt that rich countries owe to the global south. And so quantity is the big question. How much is it going to be? And there's discussions around it's 1 trillion. So it's very significant amount. But it's not only the quantity, it's also the quality. And here is where this is very important for us as well, because the implementation of solutions in the waste sector happen at the local level with local actors, with civil society, local authorities, policymakers. But so we need to make sure that this climate finance, which often stays at the very high level, at the global level or national level, we need to make sure that is also reaching the grassroots, that reach the local level, that is really supports the local economies and that builds the capacity of local authorities in cities to make sure that they can implement it. And also other quality measures, like make sure that they are not increasing the debt of global south countries, which are already under a lot of pressure to deliver on this debt. So making sure that the climate finance goes as a form of grants and making sure that it's sustainable over time. That those are quality climate finance questions that are very important as well for us in GAIA.
Thanks, Mariel. Talking about historical responsibility, now let's look at the situation in the US. Marcel, the US just elected a new president. What does it mean, or how will it impact the climate agenda?
Thanks, Sonia. It's a great question, and good to be here. Hi to everyone that's tuning in. First I'd like to just say that the administration does not change until January. And so there are still very important discussions around climate that the current administration will be carrying forward, including here in places like COP29, as well as the Global Plastics Treaty and INC5 and Korea as well. And a lot of these conversations can be centered and should be centered around methane and specifically around environmental justice and a just transition as well. So the Biden administration has that opportunity. It's really important that they take that opportunity. I think it's also noted that, GAIA advocates for decentralized zero waste systems that are human centered. And again, with an emphasis on environmental justice and a just transition. Much of this work already done in the United States is at the local and state levels. So our strategy really at this point will not really shift too much, specifically because whatever President-elect Trump does, cities, states, and businesses across the United States are going to continue their various commitments to climate action. It directly impacts their work and their day-to-day, and a lot of American citizens want continued climate action as well. And we've also have experienced this administration in the past. So we have a better picture of the overall strategy. And we also have, the publication of Project 2025, which is supposed to be the strategy and the playbook that the Trump administration will be using moving forward when he takes office. And so having this information prior to the start of his administration is really helpful in terms of what we know, what to expect from this administration. And I think it's really important to note that the world is responding to climate change, as we see here at COP29 in person. And this response will not stop just for one climate denier. And I think that's something that, although we have a very somber mood in the United States right now in the climate space, something that we need to keep reminding ourselves is that one person will not sort of stop us from having this response to climate action.
Thank you so much, Marcel. That is very inspiring to hear. So the US was instrumental in setting up the Low M partnership. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, absolutely. So the US played an instrumental role in launching the Low Methane Partnership, which is a 30 organization coalition, including GAIA, working to jumpstart progress on waste methane in key subnational jurisdictions. The low methane aims to deliver at least 1 million tons of annual methane emissions from the waste sector well before 2030. And this will require unlocking up to $10 billion in public and private investment across as many as 40 jurisdictions. And it's important to note that this low methane includes major multilateral development banks, bilateral development partners, international coalitions, non-governmental organizations, philanthropies, scientific experts, and data providers as well. So we're really excited to see this partnership continue moving forward. And we do believe that there will be continued lasting impact across the globe with this partnership as well.
Thanks, Marcel. Mariel, so we are here, GAIA is here with a delegation of 35 civil society organizations and policymakers. Can you tell us about the delegation and what they plan to accomplish here?
Yes, so we have a very inspiring, very powerful delegation with representatives from all over the world, mainly civil society organizations, but also we have a zero waste city official from the Philippines that comes representing the network of zero waste cities in Philippines. Also, we have a representative from the waste speakers from Latin America, Soledad Mella, that comes from the Chile National Organization of Waste Speakers. So, and we have, as I say, representation from many, many countries from all over the world. We have this week a very packed agenda. We have more than 20 side events. Our official side event is on the 14th, as I was saying before, which we're going to take a deep dive on climate finance for the waste sector. But we are also participating in many other official side events. And we have two press conferences, one on the 15th of November as a civil society reaction to the Global Methane Pledge Ministerial, and another one on the 19th of November as a reaction to the COP29 declaration to reduce methane from organic waste, which is going to be launched on 19th of November. And on top of that, many of our members and delegates of our delegation are organizing side events in their national pavilions, because of course, civil society is here to engage with policymakers and support the very important revision of the NDCs, and to make sure that policymakers know about the opportunities that there is in the waste sector. So we have organized several side events in the national pavilions of Tanzania, for example, where there is groundbreaking zero waste initiatives put forward with Nipe Fagio, the GAIA local member that has implemented zero waste in Dar es Salaam. So we're gonna have an opportunity to talk about that in the Tanzania National Pavilion. And there are several others on this similar vibe.
Thanks, Mariel. So today is the first day of COP29. Marcel, what is happening today and where do we find these 35 GAIA delegations?
Yes, day one of COP is super exciting, and it is definitely the very beginning of a very busy but important next 2 weeks of discussing climate finance and the role that waste plays in the climate world as well, as we discussed earlier. Now, today is one of the few days that where GAIA does not have any official side events. So you'll see our delegation will be taking the time to explore the various pavilions and side events taking place today, as well as meeting some additional stakeholders across the board. But you are likely to see GAIA delegates participating in events covering nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, the Green Climate Fund's 50 by 30 vision, and how a just transition can lead towards a more climate resilient and equal society. And lastly, we also do have our exhibit 25 here, where we're showcasing a lot of the community work, community-led work around zero waste and a just transition also, as Mariel is showing off right now. But yes, today, just getting started, very excited for the rest of the week. So please stay tuned for additional information regarding our events and the rest of week one here at COP.
Thank you so much, Mariel and Marcel, for guiding us through the previous COP and what we are here for at COP29. So for everyone, for updates on COP29, follow our daily climate newsroom and social media platforms at GAIA Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives on LinkedIn and YouTube, and Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives on Facebook, and GAIA No Burn on X. This is Sonia Astudillo. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the latest from COP29. Remember our calls to action: climate finance for methane reduction, climate finance for zero waste, and let us move from harmful to impactful climate finance and climate action in the waste sector and beyond. Good afternoon from Bangkok.